Hi everyone, welcome back. If you haven't already watched these two videos, please go ahead and pause this video and go ahead and watch those two before you continue. It's very important. They have really good information that's going to help us build a background knowledge around value and form so that we can be more successful when using color pencils. So again, pause this video. If you have not watched those videos already, watch them and then come right back. So in those videos, we talked about value and form. So value is how light or dark a given color or hue is. And then form is an object that has 3 dimensions. And when in drawing, we need to use a variety of values to create the illusion of 3 dimensions in a on a two-dimensional surface. So looking at this drawing of a crushed up Coke can, it's done on a two-dimensional surface, so a piece of paper, but the artist used a blend and mix of colors, tints and shades to go ahead and create the illusion as if this is 3-dimensional. And so with that said, color pencils have a very powerful ability to do just that in creating a 3-dimensional look on, again, a piece of paper which is a two-dimensional surface. Looking at this drawing, as you can see, the values, they're quite light. There isn't any very dark blacks, and there really is just a bunch of light gray tones. So if you were able to take value and apply it, I'm going to use the term correctly, very loosely, you're able to achieve something very beautiful and very great. And again, being able to establish and identify those values and place them in certain spaces to create a form makes it seem as if it is 3-dimensional. Here's another color pencil drawing, and when we're observing this, again, the use of value allows this strawberry to look as if it's 3-dimensional. And also another thing to note when you're observing this, the first colors that you see are of course red, brown, and green, and maybe some yellows, but if you look closely, you are able to see many different shades of red, many different shades of green, even many shades of different shades of yellow, and they're all kind of mixed together in a very specific way to create the illusion of 3 dimensions on this flat 2-dimensional surface. So to start, the first thing that we need to kind of start thinking about and understand is highlights and shadows. Okay, so when we look at this, a highlight is going to be the kind of the white areas on a drawing, and when you use highlights, that gives the illusion if it's popping out in front of you, kind of coming to you and protruding out. When we talk about shadows, shadows are the darker marks where the page kind of seems as if it's going in, or if it's like a big deep hole, right? And so the use of highlights and shadows allows you to create this 3-dimension with your artwork. So again, to start, the best way to kind of see this and understand this is to think about a value scale in kind of like a monetary value. So 0, or white, being your 0 value, and black, and you can barely see it, is 100, right? These value scales can also be considered and thought about when we're looking at colors, right? So the lightest value, almost white, or if white, would be 0. And if we're looking at red, the center, like the more truest red, would be kind of your 50% value, and then the darkest red would be 100%, or the darkest possibility that you can get with that color. Now, when you look and use color pencils, value scales could be achieved in many different ways. You can literally use different shades of colors, but you can also use different pressures to create, again, a lighter hue or a lighter color, or a darker color using the same pencil. So we're going to look at this value scale of red, and we're going to again give it a value of 0 for white and 100 for the darkest color that you could achieve with this red, and then the middle would be about 50. Now, looking at this same sphere, if we were to look at the values, you have 0 right here in the center, And then as you gradually go out, you start to see kind of your greater value. So right here in the middle is about your 50%. When you get closer to the edge, you're getting more to like 75. And when you get to the very end, you're getting up to 100. So your goal to create something that looks three-dimensional is to use all of the values from 0 to 100 in your drawing. So again, when we look at this, with the combination of using values and the combination of mixing colors and the combination of mixing different pressures, we're able to create something that looks extremely realistic and beautiful, right? And that even goes for a simple pencil drawing that looks kind of elementary school or kindergartenish, right? You can take that, you can apply different mixes of colors, different pressures, different values to make it look not only three-dimensional but also very great. So, as you can imagine, let's go ahead and try to practice ourselves. Alright guys, let's get started. So we're going to need our art books, we're going to need a pencil sharpener, our ruler, we're going to need one color pencil, preferably a darker color pencil, and then you're going to need a little circle or something to make a small circle. So if you have some change, any variety of change will work, and you only need one. So if you are having a hard time finding a penny, if you find a different circle, you're more than welcome to use it. So you can use keychain circles, you can use a ring if you have one, or again, change. Okay? So go ahead and gather all that stuff, get it pulled out. In your art book, you're going to go ahead and open to the classwork section of your book. You're going to thumb to the section that we've been working on. We just finished up our kind of quick color theory overview, and I want you guys to flip to a new page and go ahead and pull it out. Remember, I mean, you can leave it in, but I find the best work done when I have it out of the book and on a nice flat hard surface. So once you pull it out, on your paper, we're going to start with creating a small value scale at the bottom. I want you guys to go ahead and create 5 points. I used my ruler for this, and I went ahead and I just kind of measured at the bottom about 5 inches. Once I got 5 inches, I drew a line, and then I used my ruler to go ahead and create nice straight lines. Okay? After you've done and created the section for your value scale, you want to go ahead and take one of your coins, and I want you guys to create 8 circles. So again, go ahead and draw 8 perfect circles using your little reference tool. Again, I'm using a quarter, but if you don't have a quarter, you can go ahead and find anything that is a perfect circle in your house. Again, I want you guys to go ahead and draw 8 perfect circles. So, as you can imagine, I've already drawn these circles, and I already created my value scale. So, once you get to this point, go ahead and do the same. Take your color pencil, and I want you guys to create a perfect value scale going from 0 to 100. Remember what we just talked about. 0 is your value of white, which is your with no color, and 100 is going to be your darkest value that you can achieve with the color that you've chosen. So here I went ahead and kind of pressed as hard as I could without breaking the tip to achieve the darkest value. And of course the 3 in the center, I want you guys to go ahead and create kind of going from light all the way to dark. Okay? Once you've created this, we'll be ready to go. So once you're done with this, go ahead and set it aside. Now, again, as I mentioned, we're going to be trying to practice creating spheres. Okay? I've obviously done a bunch of little practice here, but our goal is to go ahead and create a perfectly shaded sphere that has the darkest value at 100 and the lightest value at 0, creating this nice gradient from dark to light, making it seem as if this shape as a circle turn it into a 3-dimensional sphere. So when we're creating spheres, the first thing we need to understand and pay attention to is our light source. If our light source is coming from this corner, it's going to shine on the sphere, and the first kind of contact with the sphere, that is going to be your brightest point, your highlight. Okay? As you can imagine, if this was a sphere, if this was circular, it would kind of curve around, and at the bottom you would have your shadow as if it's like tucking underneath. Okay? So to start, the best way to kind of identify these is honestly just to draw a line and understand where each kind of value exists, right? So here, as we know, this is a value of 0, right? And our goal is to have it gradually go from 0 to 100, which again, our darkest value is 100, okay? So when we look at this, we can kind of start thinking about and identifying each value as it gets darker and darker. So about right here, I'd say, is when the next value kind of shifts and gets darker. And I would say that this value inside, I would probably put it about like right here or so. So this is about, let's say, 40. So we'll put 40 right here. And then as we go darker, again, we identify our next values, or our next line. Which here, I would say that this is probably kind of in this area, and we'll put this at, like, let's say 60 or 70. Right? So we can put 60 to 70. And then obviously our very last value right here at the end is going to be black, or 100. So when we ourselves are going to be practicing using colored pencil to recreate a sphere, we first need to kind of guide out and kind of decide the curvature of our sphere, and then we need to go ahead and practice with different pressures and blending those pressures, going from 0 to 100. So go ahead and pull back the template that we've already made. And in the first circle, what I want you guys to do is I want you to think about where your light source is going to be. So let's just pretend and say that my light source is right here. Okay? So with the quick little example that we just saw, I know that the first time that the light hits the sphere, this is going to be a value of 0. Okay? So as I gradually go down, and this is kind of where the art skills kick in, you get to determine how dark or light this sphere is going to be from 0 to 100. And the more accurate that you're able to get it, the better it is going to be represented. So here, let's say, like in my example, it kind of jumped all the way to kind of this midsection. So let's just say like this is going to be 30. We're going to go a little bit darker. We're going to follow that curvature. Again, I'm going to make this area, let's say like maybe like 60. And then obviously this is going to be my darkest. Okay? So for these 4, I want you to kind of just play around with different light sources. And I want you to kind of just, again, visualize and draw the lines and kind of think about, it's going to go from 0, so white, and you're going to gradually go to the darkest value that you possibly can. And so we're starting off slow. I know for some of you, you may understand this kind of quickly and easily. But remember, it's always a good idea to get good practice under your belt so that you can be the best artist you possibly can be. So, once you've kind of played around with these lines and identifying the curvature of the sphere, I want you to kind of pick one of these, and I want you to practice your first one right on this 5th circle. So I'm going to do this top one right here. And again, I'm going to draw my lines just so I have them for reference for the first one. And I want you to draw them just as guide and reference. Okay? So here, this is my 0, I'm thinking about 30, 60, and 100. So I can start with 100 because I know that that's my darkest value. So if I go 100, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply some really good pressure to the area that needs to be 100. Okay? Now, I'm going to be cautious, and I'm not going to go all the way to the line. I'm going to leave just a little bit of space, because as you can imagine, with a sphere, your goal is to blend them seamlessly from light to dark. And remember, with all the practice that we've done, we know that we can do this with changing up the pressures with our pencil. So here I press super hard, here I barely pressed at all, and I'm able to achieve this value scale. And so really I'm just doing the same value scale in this sphere. So the next step is going to be about 60. So I know 60 is kind of somewhere in this range right over here. And so I need to go ahead and apply significantly less pressure to achieve that next value that I need. Now, when you do this, as you can imagine, you're going to have a pretty hard line. So what you're going to need to practice is playing around with pressures and trying to blend those two together. So here you can use the I like to use the circular method when I'm blending two values together. It tends to be the most effective without putting too much value and messing up the blend. So again, play around with the pressures and pressing lighter, harder, or lighter to kind of achieve that blend, and then blend those two values together. So as you can imagine, the next value is going to be somewhere around 30. So 30 is about right over here. So as I'm going, again, I'm just trying to blend it seamlessly from 100 all the way down to 0. So this, as I determine, is about 30, and I'm using the circular coloring motion just so I can get a nice good blend between everything. And then right when I get to my value that should be 0, I'm just going to, again, just barely crop the paper and touch the paper with my pencil very, very lightly. And voila, we have our first sphere. Unfortunately, you can still see the reference lines that you made, which of course they are there for practice. So these next 3, what I want you guys to do is I want you to practice doing this without using any reference lines. Your goal is to be able to achieve this sphere perfectly without any reference lines, and kind of playing with, more highlight or more shadow, and kind of, tweaking it so it looks like a perfect sphere. So here, as you can imagine, I have already done one that I showed you before. And so this sphere, without any reference lines, I was able to press as hard as I could to get this really dark value, and then my goal was to blend seamlessly from dark to light. So if you don't get it perfect this first time, and you've already used up your 4, that's perfectly fine. We're going to be spending a little bit more time practicing this, because of course we need to kind of perfect this skill before we're able to apply it to all of the wonderful drawings that we were looking at previously. So once you're done, make sure that you send me a picture of your work through your personal channel. As always, if you have any questions, or you need help, you're confused, you're lost, you're not getting the same results as me, just make sure that, again, that you ask your questions during our time during class. I'll be there to help you. And if I'm not available, just go ahead and send me a message to your personal channel, and I will arrange a time so I can go ahead and sit down with you and talk this through. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I miss you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.